worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Oh, well, okay. Welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. And you are in touch with the compensatory concept with Dr. Neely Fuller. I am Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. As a matter of fact, we are heard live Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So if you're out in California, it's 7 a.m. We do invite your calls, by the way, at 1-877-932-9766 to get in touch with Dr. Fuller, and he will be happy to answer or to explain or speak about or to address the questions or your concerns right now. Dr. Fuller, as we normally start out our program, how are you this morning?
I'm still learning.
I'm still learning. I love that statement. Before we get started here, Dr. Fuller, there was a concern that came up this, I guess it was this week. It was concerning a gentleman who has passed away by the name of Eric Garner. From what I can gather, understand that he was standing on the sidewalk in New York City, and I did see the YouTube video where it looked as if the police, well, they did put a chokehold on him, and he subsequently succumbed to the chokehold. And, of course, there's been all types of allegations and charges against the New York City Police Department on this. As a matter of fact, it kind of reminded me of something that I had seen in a Spike Lee movie when it was Do the Right Thing, when Radio Raheem was put in a chokehold and died with the hands of the police. Now, the New York City Police Commission is doing some investigation on it. The video was shot by an amateur. I don't know if you saw the video or not, but in the racism, white supremacy world, when you look at this, what is happening or what has happened here and against people who are non-white?
Well, what happens is what usually happens, just like you mentioned about the depiction in the Spike Lee movie, Do the Right Thing, where the character in the movie was subjected to the law enforcement procedures and died as a result. Now, this happens quite frequently, and can be expected to happen again, even if there are huge demonstrations against it and about it. It will happen again and again and again and again and again ad infinitum. It's almost a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
There are hundreds and hundreds of stories like this. And so it comes down to, ultimately, what do you actually do about it?
Mm-hmm.
So when people ask me, because I always try to come up with the best procedures that black people should react to in cases dealing with direct possible confrontations with law enforcement, and that is comply with what they say, because there may be racists involved, people who believe in white supremacy, who are wearing uniform, badge and a gun, but they believe in white supremacy. They're really not police officers. They're imposters.
Mm-hmm.
They're infiltrators.
Mm-hmm.
And they are people who I call race soldiers. That's the term that I used in the textbook for for victims of white supremacy in the Word Guide. They are race soldiers. In other words, they are enforcing racism, and that's their intention. And some of them acquire that intention after they get in uniform, and some of them have it before then. They actually say that I'm going to get into law enforcement so that I can kill black people and do it legally. And so you can't read people's minds, but you can assume that in any so-called law enforcement establishment, you have race soldiers. Mm-hmm. So you make that assumption right from the beginning, and you act accordingly. And therefore, by acting accordingly, I say, in a racist society, in a racist system, which is the dominant government on the planet, and someone with a badge and a gun, quote, unquote, representing law enforcement, approaches a victim of racism, meaning a non-white person, a person classified as non-white, you immediately go into I am surrounded mode. I am like a paratrooper in a war who's dropped behind enemy lines. Mm-hmm. And now I'm being approached by people who are taking me into captivity.
Yes, sir.
And they have orders. If he makes any move, kill him.
Well, Dr.
You have to have that mentality. If he or she makes any move, you have to have that in your mind. If I make any move that they can use as probable cause to kill me, I'm dead.
Okay, but
which means no argument. I'm not going to argue.
Right,
I'm not going to argue. I am going to comply just like I would if I were a captured soldier surrounded by people with fixed bayonets. Say, give it a World War II scenario. I dropped behind the lines in Germany, mm-hmm. and I'm wearing the uniform of a British soldier or what they call an American soldier or whatnot, an enemy of the Nazi regime. All right? So I drop behind the lines, and I find that once I get out of my parachute, I look up, and there's 12 soldiers standing there with machine guns and etc. I don't go into an argumentative mode mm-hmm. at all. I put up my hands, and I do what I am told to do for a very practical reason. I am at a complete disadvantage.
1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call to get in contact with Dr. Fuller. But Dr. Fuller, in that which you just presented, in this dissertation that you just presented, what about in the Rodney King beating? He was compliant, and yet he still got beat to death. I mean, well, not to death, but he got beat repeatedly. How would you address that? He was in compliance with what they were telling him what to do with his hands behind his back and on his knees.
Then it comes down to a question, because all solutions to problems is a matter of questions and answers. Now, since you gave that illustration, let's walk through the illustration. He was compliant.
Yes.
All right? But he got beaten.
Yes.
All right, so that raises a question. What if he wasn't compliant? See what I mean? Because you only have so many options. You're behind enemy lines.
Yes.
And the soldiers approach you.
Yes.
Now, the soldiers say, get on the ground.
Which he did.
So you get on the ground. Then the soldiers start beating you. What can you do?
Yeah.
Now you got it. Now you got the picture in your mind. Expect to get beaten. That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
Why? Because you are a enemy soldier caught behind enemy lines. Period. And anything ugly might happen to you from that point on. You have to have that in your mind. So you don't do anything to aggravate the situation, and even if you are compliant with everything that they say, and go into a beating mode, because, some white supremacists have the mentality, this black guy is compliant. I didn't expect is being compliant. I didn't expect that. I expected him to resist or to take off running, in which case I was going to say my gun went off and hit him in the back of the head. But, I mean, he's not doing any of that. So since I got it in my mind that I just want to do something to him anyway, because I'm sick of these people, well, I'm going to start beating him anyhow, and say that he looked like he was fixing to do something.
Okay, well, that's what they said. They said he looked like he was getting ready to do something.
All
but then
right.
that brings me to Abner Nuema, who was in the New York City jail and was sodomized by the police, where they stuck a broom up his anus and damaged him, so he was in compliance with that. I mean, what about stuff like that?
And okay, now, well, I'm going to be very, very pointed about situations.
Okay.
Of this type. I've already laid out. You're behind. If the person is a racist, the person who is supposed to be the arresting and enforcing due process and legalisms and all like that, but the person is actually a racist with a racist mind, the person is going to practice racism, because that's what the person who is a racist does. So it always comes down to what do you do? So you got two options here. If you decide to cooperate, and even if you cooperate, you get beaten, you got another option. Well, actually, you got three.
Okay, what are they?
You can cooperate.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's just two. You cooperate because if you get up and run, all right, now you're not cooperating. Now, the other option is you fight. Now, I don't recommend that. When I say you fight, it means most likely you're going to lose. Mm-hmm. Okay? You know, and any soldier is taught, under circumstances where you're most likely to lose, you don't fight. Yes. You just don't fight just to be fighting. Mm-hmm. All right? I mean, if you see a way that maybe, hey, I better put up my hands and comply, even if I get beaten with rifle butts and all like that, and get stomped all the way to the concentration camp, I mean, I'll just go along with that. I'll just be a bloody mess and go along with that.
All righty.
Why? Because if I open fire, I'll die instantly.
Okay.
I'm not going. The odds are against me. See, you got to be practical about everything, and you got to be in wartime mode because we are in a war.
We're in a war.
This is no game. This is no misunderstanding between friends.
Okay. 1-877-932-9766 is the national number that you can call. We have a call for you, Dr. Fuller, from Reggie. Reggie from Miami. Go ahead, Reggie, what's your call for Dr. Fuller?
How you doing? I just wanted to say there's a video on YouTube that kind of addresses dealing with the police. It's called 10 Rules for Dealing with the Police. And I'm seeing that one by, Flex Your Rights or whatnot. And it's basically what Mr. Fuller says, just kind of keeping quiet, complying with the police. I think it can avoid a lot of those situations. So I think everyone should encourage their kids or anyone they know to watch these videos, because arguing is going to get you nowhere, and usually you end up getting yourself in more trouble, confessing to things and whatnot. So you should just watch the video. Mm-hmm. And that's about it.
Did you have a question for Dr. Fuller there? Since you're calling from Miami, Florida, and is that Broward County?
Dade County.
I mean Dade County. Okay, you have situations down there. Is that correct?
There's situations everywhere. Yeah, we have situations down here. Actually, I don't really have a question. I just think every time something happens, we get on here and just talk about it and don't really do anything. And I think watching these videos and forwarding the videos to people is something that people can actually do.
All right.
I actually read his book. I ordered it. And what I did was ordered it for friends and start passing it out and just actually applying what he says in the book. So I don't really have a question.
Okay.
I just wanted to tell people to YouTube it, 10 Rules for Dealing with the Police, and it's pretty much saying exactly what Mr. Fuller is saying.
Okay. Thank you so much, Reggie, from Miami, Florida. Go ahead, Dr. Fuller. You want to address that particular book there or the YouTube videos? What do you think about that?
Well, I haven't seen the YouTube video or the book, but these are just things about what you do and what you don't do. Mm-hmm. I mean, people can go on and on and on and demonstrate in the street by the thousands and all like that, but even while they're demonstrating, somebody will be subject to this somewhere. So it comes down to we have to codify everything. Black people do not have a code. We don't have a code of behavior. to handle any situation. We haven't even thought about having one. So it should be this ironclad in our minds by now.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're surrounded by people with guns, comply with what they tell you to do, or be ready to kill and die on the spot.
Wow.
No options. I mean, there's nothing in between that.
Mm-hmm.
Comply fully, or be ready to kill and die on the spot. Just make up your mind. This is my last day on earth. They're coming. And so I know that I'm going to die, and I'm going to kill. I mean, you got to make that decision, and you make that decision right now. Now,
Yes,
I don't recommend that you go into the kill and die mode.
Yes, sir.
Unless you woke up that morning with that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because if you didn't wake up that morning with that in mind, you do what you're told regardless of what happens. If you're in your brand new suit on your way to a wedding, and you're pulled over and told to get out and get down in the mud in your suit.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And you get down in the mud on the suit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
End of story. That's it. No argument, no muss, no fuss. And the less you say, the better.
All right. You're listening
Now,
to
that
the
should be
compensatory
every black
concept
person on the planet should have that in mind.
with Dr. Neely Fuller, exclusively heard here on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio the way it should be heard. Okay, Dr. Fuller, we have another call from Rachel. Rachel from Michigan. Go ahead, Rachel.
Good morning, Dr. Fuller, and thanks for taking my call. I had a question. I just actually stumbled across your information, so I'm taking it all in. I just ordered your products, your 2 books, and I'm waiting on that. But my question is, since listening to the information and definitely realizing that I am a victim of racism, white supremacy, I'm single and looking to be married, hopefully, and it just doesn't seem too promising being a victim, and with all the things that I'm just realizing actually that we're in the system, and it's just like one of these things that doesn't seem too encouraging. What do you say to individuals like myself who are looking to be married one day, but my history has been with, failed relationships. The examples that I've had have been not that great, and I just want to know if you could just speak to those single men and women, non-white, that are desirous of relationships under this system.
Now, well, what specifically are you talking about? Relationships?
Well, does it make sense to even look for relationships when we're victims? And I mean, they're basically just kind of sick. We're not, from what I see in the conversations I have with the different men in my area, it's just kind of like a waste of time in a sense.
Depends on what you want. You're going to have to be very specific about what you want. And you're not going to get most of what you want, most likely, under these conditions. The conditions will not nourish what it is you want. We're not in a society where non-white people in their relationships with each other are given nourishing platforms. We're not given anything to help us to get along with each other. So don't expect it. See, disappointment comes from expectation. We are in a situation that should never have existed. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Everything is problematic in all of the 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So a black female, if I understand your question, cannot look forward to a constructive relationship with anybody. Because black people in general cannot look forward to that under this system. The system does not allow it. So all you can really do is minimize conflict. But you can't get it the way it ought to be. If you're looking for a companion, a husband, or something like that, just lower your expectations because it's not likely to happen the way that it ought to be. In fact, the whole situation in which you exist is nowhere near the way it ought to be. So therefore, your relationship is not going to be the way it ought to be. This is why a lot of people say, well, I don't have time to think about this racist thing and all like that. I just got to get on with my life. That's the problem. You can't get on with your life because racism is going to touch everything that you do, every move you make. And if you think you can have a relationship outside of racism, it's not going to happen if you're classified as non-white. It's not going to happen. And so any person that you pick for a partner and all like that is going to have some pluses and a whole lot of minuses.
Did that answer your question, Rachel?
That.
It did. And I also had a question for the host. I was looking on the Talktainment website, and I noticed as I was trying to listen to the archive conversations, some of them said contact the radio station. Just wanted to know how we can access the previous recordings. Because, like I said, I just found this information.
They're all on podcast, aren't they, Brother Ed? Yeah. No, they're not. Not all of them are on podcast, but you can go on talktainmentradio.com and go under programs, and you'll see the compensatory concept with Dr. Fuller, and you can access many of his programs, from there. You can do that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
You're welcome. Let's take another call here. Brother Warren from New Orleans. Go ahead, Brother Warren. How are you this morning?
Greetings. I want to ask Mr. Fuller the point of your book of Code of Conduct, which is very important. Through oral history and study of African American history, talking to elders, it appeared that African American people had some sort of code of conduct with each other as they responded to this overall system, some kind of respect between young people and adults. What happened to us in the last 30 years to where it appears that we're just walking around feeling we can do anything we want in our neighborhoods with each other? Did we fall for something in our attempt to solve the problem during the civil rights movement? Some say that the more militant phase of the Black Power movement ushered in an aspect of rejection of authority, not just against white authority, but a sort of code of conduct among black people. Could you speak to the fact that when you were coming up, it appeared that there was a little bit more order among blacks than it may appear today? And I listen.
Yes, there was, but it's never been anywhere close to the way it ought to be. No relationships have ever been that way. So it's no criteria that we can go into the past and refer to as the model for us to follow now. None. The system of white supremacy, as long as black people can remember, going way back. I don't know how it was before there was white supremacy, but whatever it was, sometimes people talk about ancient history, but the ancient history of black people had all kind of flaws, or we wouldn't be having this conversation today, because the black people going back in ancient history weren't doing what they should have been doing. Otherwise, they could not have been conquered. I'm going to say that again. They weren't doing what they should have been doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been conquered. Everywhere they were encountered, they were conquered, so they didn't have a code for dealing with a conqueror. Or we wouldn't be having these conversations today. So there's no criteria in the past. It's nothing we can refer to in the past that will keep us from being under the system of white supremacy. No one has ever. There's no record of anybody defeating the system of white supremacy. That's why we need a code. I came to the conclusion that's the missing link. We've had all kind of slangs. We've had all the kind of customs. We have never had a code that is tailored razor sharp to deal with racism on a daily basis, addressed to the individual person. At very best, all down through the years, we've had a few black spokespersons to go out and address the issue and say how much pain they are feeling and how much pain black people are feeling. Well, we know what pain is, but we haven't had a code for addressing it on a day-to-day, minute-by-minute basis. And this is what I've tried to do with the approach that I'm given with the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. And I've tried to do that in all of the 9 areas of activity, make some suggestions, just like the early part of this conversation today. What do you do? See, it all comes down to what you do about things. If we don't come up with a code about what you do each and every day, every minute of the day, you got to have a code for what you do every minute of the day. That's what is needed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if you're walking down the street and all of a sudden sirens come from everywhere and people jump out of cars, and run up to you, what's your code? What is your code? Do you have one?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the code should be freeze, just like they told you. Put up your hands, just like they told you. If they slam you across the hood of the car, you just got slammed across the hood of the car. Why? Because you follow the logic. The logic is you're surrounded. You're some kind of suspect of some type. You are now in trouble. And ugly things can happen instantly.
They sure
like
can.
Like sudden death.
They sure can.
You've got to expect that. And don't play like you're not expecting it.
Okay. Well, Brother Warren, did that answer your question here before we go to break?
I just want to say that
quickly now.
I would think, Mr. Fuller, at the end of slavery, when blacks wanted to be educated and read in Creek schools, that their code was, I want to learn. I want to learn. It seems that's what was happening after slavery when blacks were creating schools and universities for themselves.
Go ahead, Dr. Fuller. We have about a minute before we go to break.
Right. If I understand, if he's saying education, that's one of the 9 areas of activity. Sure. I always open my program. I respond to people when I answer the phone. I say I'm still learning.
Yes, sir. You do.
Because we're supposed to be learning all the time. Black people are supposed to be the foremost people on the planet who are in a learning mode. Be willing to have anybody teach you anything that may be of constructive value. Don't reject learning. Be willing to learn all the time. Why? For a very logical reason. We're considered to be the most backward people on earth.
Okay, well, thank you.
The way you get to be backward is you're not willing to learn.
Thank you, Brother Warren. We're up against the break here, but let's do this. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Check us out on WCRS FM 98.3 Wednesdays and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell phone or tablet. We go where you go. Radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We have a call from Andrea from South Carolina, and we'll continue more with the topics that Dr. Fuller wants to talk about here on Talktainment Radio, radio the way it should be heard.
TalkTainmentRadio.com is the premier internet radio platform offering 40-plus talk radio-style programs professionally produced, optimized for online distribution, featuring Columbus, Ohio on-air personalities. TalkTainmentRadio.com offers listeners diverse programming options covering topics such as arts and culture, love, life and relationships, technology, religion, paranormal activities, local and national politics, women's issues, alongside health and wellness. Listeners can access their favorite TalkTainmentRadio.com programs free of cost through the website. Download the TTR app to your cell phone and you can take us wherever you go. We have programs on demand to fit your schedule through our podcast. The address is TalkTainmentRadio.com.
Franklin County Children's Services and the City of Columbus invite you to Mayor Michael Coleman's Neighborhood Block Party and Fam Jam, a family enrichment festival on Saturday, August 2nd from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Columbus Commons Park in downtown Columbus. The event is free and open to the public. Take the bus, ride your bike, carpool, walk, or ride to one of the area parking garages and spend the day with them. Fam Jam will bring families together for tons of fun while learning about helpful community programs and safety tips. Head out and see your favorite neighborhood pride partners, climb on a real fire engine, and go through the Columbus Fire Department Safe House. There will also be food, games, entertainment, and bounce houses, plus parenting tips, safety information, and community information from more than 70 exhibitors. Please join Franklin County Children's Services and the City of Columbus at this family-focused event and help them protect children by strengthening families. For more information, call Children's Services Community Outreach Department at 614-341-6085.
Have you ever wished you could spend more time with your kids, or maybe quality time with your spouse, when you can actually have an uninterrupted conversation? Do you owe your dad a little catch-up time? Well, it's time to reconnect, and no activity can bond a family together quite like boating and fishing. I mean, think of all the great experiences you had as a kid when you went boating or fishing. Well, guess what? It's still great. Boating and fishing are the perfect opportunities for your family to get away, to talk, to laugh, to create new memories. So take someone you love out on the water and see where the water takes you. If you haven't been on the water in a while and you're not sure where to start, or if you just like to have some helpful tips for your next trip, please visit TakeMeFishing.org. This has been a public service of TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
For information on everything from passports to driver's licenses to local weather, go to firstgov.gov. Firstgov.gov, the official source for federal, state, and local government information.
Years ago, identical twins were separated at birth. Chris Paul was destined for love of basketball. Cliff Paul was destined to become a State Farm agent. They shared one invaluable trait. They were both born to assist. Find an agent born to get you to a better state.
Hi, this is Bobby West, the new host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on TalkDamonRadio.com. And yes, I am back. So tune in every Wednesday for the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller with your new co-host, Bobby West, right here on TalkDamonRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
You got the power.
All righty, TalkDamonRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. This is the Compensatory Concept with Dr. Neely Fuller. And before we go to Andrea, these things I have to do, Andrea, these are necessary. Let's get this out the way. If you're looking for a show that stimulates your mind and inspires your heart, listen to The Kinsman, intelligent conversations with a touch of inspiration, hosted by Malik Eru. The Kinsman is lovingly dedicated to the descendants of the survivors of African chattel slavery. Feel the vibe of Malik Eru and ponder his messages as he addresses the African-American experience in various nuances and dimensions, past, present, and future. Malik Eru's message is simply this: God is with us in our quest of freedom. And this broadcast today here on TalkTainmentRadio.com. And speaking about that, Dr. Fuller, a question was asked of me, how do we get in contact to get your books? Could you address that, please?
ProduceJustice.com. Go to ProduceJustice.com. That's like in production. You're trying to produce a product, and that product is justice, or rather you should be. ProduceJustice.com. ProtectJustice.com, and what will come up on the screen is a brief description of a basic textbook for victims of white supremacy, and another book that's a counter-racist word guide, because words are your tools. That's one of your main tools for countering white supremacy, because the white supremacists use words as one of their main tools for practicing racism. So you want to know something about, first of all, how they use words, and you want to know how best to use the same words or different words in such a way that you can best do what? Produce justice, because justice is in opposition to the system of racism. Racism is about promoting justice. And
Alrighty.
we need a counter-racist system that is opposed to the practice of racism, because racism is about promoting justice.
Okay, so producejustice.com, and that's how we can get in contact with Dr. Fuller. And finally, before we get to Andrea, this one right here. If you have any questions regarding Talktainment Radio or the website, contact Ed Dozier at talktainmentradio.com, and he will hook you up. Okay, finally, after all this long wait, we're going down to the great state of South Carolina and Andrea. Andrea, thank you for holding. Welcome. And what is your question for Dr. Fuller?
Yes, how you doing? It's actually Andre, but how you doing?
Oh, Andre. Okay, I'm sorry, Andre. Okay.
No problem. That's no problem.
Okay.
How you doing, Mr. Fuller?
I'm still learning.
Okay, I have two quick questions. The first question I have is that I hear like a lot of people on the radio and in different media outlets, and it'd be black people, and they'll say that black people, we are our own worst enemy. And after like reading your books and listening to some of your podcasts and stuff, I kind of think that's not true. I kind of think that we should kind of rephrase it as white supremacy is our greatest enemy. And I didn't know if you agree or disagree. And then after that, I have another question.
Yes, I agree with what you just said. White supremacy is our greatest enemy, and that greatest enemy causes black people to turn on each other. That's a part of their package. They have scientifically figured out, they, meaning the white supremacists, that how they can have most of their work done on a daily basis by having black people do harmful things to each other, say harmful things to each other, sing songs that are harmful to each other, try to figure out ways that they can do more harm to each other, walk down the street looking for black people, that you can stare at and get something started. Something started like what? Putting up a building? Inventing something? No. Get something started like a good fight. This is what black people, this is where our minds are. This is what we practically look forward to, even when we think that we are not looking forward to it. We go on television. We're saying, what kind of scenario are we going to have? We're going to make a movie about black people. Well, let's do what we usually do. Reflect black lifestyle. What's the black lifestyle? Always be in a combat mode when it comes to other black people. Just ready to argue, ready to cuss somebody out. Try to figure out how many new cuss words you can come up with so you can be insulting, so you can say something to make somebody feel bad, and then get in a great big fight about it, and then out with the guns and knives and start killing each other. So the white supremacists say, hey, that's the way we trained them. We got them well trained for that. That's why we don't have to do a lot of work. We just stand back and watch the show, because these people have been trained by us very well to be against each other. They hate themselves, and they hate anything that looks like them. And they'll turn on each other in a minute. And we set that up. That goes to show you how efficient we white supremacists are. And so that's what it's all about. They are the greatest enemy, but they have made black people enemies of each other. We look forward to coming up with new ways, new and better ways of being enemies of each other. That's the truth. We got to face that truth.
What's your second question, Andre?
Yeah, my second question, I guess it's more I need clarification from on Dr. Fuller, is that what I see sometimes is like if white supremacists supposed to be, the smartest and the most dominant. What confuses me sometimes is that whenever it is known that they are white supremacists, like say a Donald Sterling or Don Imus or whoever, it seems like the public, punishes them. So I'm trying to what confuses me, how can they promote white supremacy at the same time? In the public, it seems like once a white supremacist is known, it seems like the public is, seems like they get punished in the public. So I just need some clarification on that.
Okay, that comes down to definitions. What's the public? Now, the white supremacist public, they do what you call the yin and yang. In other words, they'll have white supremacists who will speak in behalf of black people. And then you have white supremacists who will speak against black people. And they have all gotten their heads together before they make this move. And so what does that cause? That causes confusion in the minds of black people, because you've got some white people who are speaking up in behalf of black people. That even went back to the days of the lynch mobs. You would always have a sprinkling of white people on the edge of the crowd saying, please don't lynch that Negro. That's a nice colored man. I know him. Please don't lynch him. Please, please, let him live. And then the other white supremacists are saying, no, lynch him, lynch him. And then the Negro would get lynched. And then the crowd would break up. And then next week they'd come back and do the same thing. And then the week after that. And the week after that. But see, that's a little understanding that they have among each other. I'll speak up for him, you speak against him, but the end result is he's going to get the raw end of the deal. He's going to wind up getting lynched anyway. But what that will do, that will confuse people because they won't know that we're working together. And we'll pull that everywhere we've ever gone, and that's why we're successful for hundreds of years.
And we know who the author of confusion is. Wow. Okay, yes. Andre, thank you very much for your call.
Okay, I have one quick statement.
Okay.
I just wanted to tell Mr. Fuller that I wish I would have knew about him years ago where I could see him when he was doing lectures, and I wish I could have seen him. But this is, I guess, the next best thing.
But here's I can really say, here's the thing now, Andre. You're getting it right now, and now is where you live at, brother. Appreciate your call.
All right, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, next, let's go to Eddie from the great state of California. Go ahead, Eddie. Do your thing.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning, host. I used to talk to Mr. Fuller all the time. I guess you'll remember Mr. Fuller. I used to call you every day a couple of years ago. But here's what I wanted to ask you, because I was just listening to you, and I was kind of confused about what you said. Not what you said, but how you said it. You said racism promotes justice, or did you mean injustice?
Say that again?
When you said racism promotes justice, did you mean injustice, or did you mean justice? I don't know if you.
No, if I said that was a mistake, and you watch for those mistakes too, because
I know you, so I know what you should.
Trying to talk fast. I mean, sometimes I'm trying to talk fast, and that's not my normal cadence. But on radio, you got to kind of talk fast. So you caught that as an error. You should have caught it. No, racism is all about non-justice.
Correct.
Yes, counter-racism is about justice. In other words, you're against racism. Now, we don't have any counter-racist code in place. That's what we should be trying to build. What do I mean by counter-racist code? That in every situation, you know exactly what to do as an individual person. Because I haven't explained what this code business is supposed to be. The racists have a code. They know what to do in every situation. They know what to say. They say, here comes the black fella. Let's go into the code mode. So they know exactly how to talk to black people. By the time the average white person who has been schooled in racism is around 15 or 16 years old, they'll make some mistakes at that age. But They know most of the fundamentals. Here comes the black people. All right, this is white code time. We will talk to them in this way in order to get our way in getting things done. We know when to be nice to them. We know what buttons to push to make them angry. We know what words to use to make them jump up and start throwing things and cuss everybody out and make them walk off the job, because that's what we wanted them to do in the first place. See, they know all of this. They know how to push black people's buttons. Black people don't have anything like that, where we say, now we're going to be dealing with white people today. So I know exactly what to say. I know exactly what not to say. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly what not to do. Now, that's not to say that all of the white people that you'll be dealing with are racist, or even most of them are. But I'm saying you can kind of count on it that some of them are. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call. Brother Mal, you can call in and we'll try to get to you. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Dr. Neely Fuller. Go ahead, Dr. Fuller, speaking from with Eddie from California. Go ahead, Eddie.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mr. Fuller, yeah, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, this is at least me being a student of youth for all my life. It changed my life completely, man, and I love it. But the bottom line is going through the 9 areas of compensatory people activity known, in the known universe, we're ending up, it seems to me, as I look at my family, my daughter's struggles and stuff, we're ending up at the war area. Could you speak more microscopically about the area of war?
Good question.
Can I speak more microscopically?
I mean, focus on that area for a moment, because what you were saying earlier is so advantageous for us to hear about what we should be doing.
Focusing in on the war aspect of the 9 areas of activities. Yes.
Okay, the war area, most of it consists of what? If you read the book, is maximum emergency compensatory action for justice. That means maximum emergency means you're going to kill and you're going to die after you kill.
Wow.
That's what that means. And you're going to die by your own hand. Now, that's an automatic break. That keeps a non-white person from making rash decisions that get them dead when they wasn't ready to be dead. See, if you're going to be dead on a war, at least have the option of being able to choose when you're going to do the dying. Don't just try to die under somebody else's circumstance. Now, this is called maximum emergency for a reason. It means you have tried everything that you can possibly try on this planet. You've gone every place that you can possibly go. And you are completely not only at wit's end, meaning using your wits, using your brain, but that you are physically unable, totally. That's what I mean by maximum. Totally unable to improve your condition. And you only decide, well, today is going to be my last day on earth because I see no way that I can function under these wartime conditions. The wartime conditions have really gotten so bad that I just can't take it anymore. I'm at wit's end, and my physical condition, my mental condition, my overall social condition is so deteriorated. Not the person down the block now, or the person across the street, or the people that I know personally, but this is my condition as an individual person. I can't take it anymore. And I can't listen to anybody else's story anymore. I can't listen to black people. They're not talking about nothing. I can't listen to white people. They're not helping me. So, it means that you choose to inflict maximum pain, meaning death, on your opponent. And after having done so, because the law of counter-racist compensation says, hey, if you inflict death on someone willfully and deliberately, you're sending them into another universe. And when you do that, you should be willing to go yourself. That's the kind of world that we should be trying to produce.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr.
So that's
Fuller,
why I'm saying this is in the 9th area of activity.
Right.
That's right.
Well, do you feel that just based on your observation, do you feel that white supremacists are willing to die for that cause?
The maximum emergency is not for any white person.
Yeah, I know that, but if you utilize that strategy, do you think that those who perpetrate this evil are willing to die for it?
The white supremacists?
Yes, sir. I'm asking that. Yes, sir.
Sure, a lot of them, lots of white supremacists have died to uphold white supremacy. That's why I'm saying you have to read the chapter, the entire chapter, and read it very carefully.
Correct.
That's why I don't like to talk about it, because there's always a huge misunderstanding, particularly when you start talking about making death.
Yes.
When you start talking about killing and dying. This is not anything
Mr. Host,
that's
can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Right.
This is a very important point right here. Mr. Fuller, are you familiar with the word GRID? The acronym GRID. GRID. G-R-I-D.
G-R-I-D?
D. GRID. Like a grid. System. You got me? What you're speaking of. The acronym and Obama's 2009 LGBT ceremony at the White House, and you can go back and Google it and pull it up. You can read where Obama clearly states he's come to this country, he's come to politics to put people on the grid. Now, here's what the grid means. It's very eye-opening. Gay-related immune disease. Just leave it like that.
Could you repeat that again?
The GRID acronym means gay-related immune or infectious, either one you want to transcribe, disease. Look at what Obama's efforts and what his result. He is pushing homosexuality on the world, and he said that in that article. I came to put homosexuality in the world scale.
Wow. Could you address
He
that,
said
Dr.
that.
Fuller?
You can go look up the actual he has it in text, 2009 LGBT celebration at the White House. Go read that for yourself. He says this out of his mouth, point blank.
Dr. Fuller, could you address that even though you haven't read the article, just surfacely?
No, I haven't read the article, and I'm not sure that I understand what I'm hearing right now. What's the gist of it? That President Obama is saying that he wants the entire globe to do what?
The homosexual agenda.
Oh, well, nobody should be surprised at that. Simply because where does President Obama get his instructions? That's a question. I started off this program, like all programs, saying everything is about questions and answers. So you got to ask thousands of questions sometimes in order to get thousands of answers that will come up with the final answers. So the first question is, and the last question, you might say, or the in-between question, where does President Obama get his instructions for doing whatever he's going to do in a system of white supremacy? So you always stop and think. President Obama is in the system of white supremacy. He gets his instructions from the same people that I get them from the white supremacists. So the white supremacist agenda is to degenderize huge numbers of non-white people worldwide. That's their agenda. They have made that very clear. They have let black males know you're not going to be men on this planet, ever, under my regime, the white supremacist regime. You'll never be a man. You'll never be fit for a woman. So you got your options. You can remain a boy, or you can become an imitation female. Take your choice, kiddo. Now, for the black females, You can turn on each other or hook up with some white woman and marry her. And then if you hook up with a black female, we can take you black females who don't have jobs and all like that, and you want to be able to support your illegitimate children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're going to put you in the armies. See, they got a long-range agenda for all of this so-called gay stuff, okay, that is aimed at the non-white people of this planet. That's the white supremacists' agenda. Now, black people who are so-called gay and whatnot might think that they have their own agenda, but you better believe the white supremacist agenda is going to trump whatever they're thinking. Like the white supremacist agenda trumps whatever any black person is thinking. That's what white supremacy means. You all can go over there on your side of town and have your little plans, but you better believe my plan is going to be greater than yours. So that's what they intend to do with huge numbers of non-white people all over this planet. In every little African village, they're gathering up little boys. You see white men getting off of planes with briefcases. They got what you call, quote, unquote, a degenderizing agenda for everybody in that village.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, Eddie from California. We got one more call. Brother Mal from Columbus. Go ahead with your question for Dr. Fuller.
Yes, very quickly here. Just to touch on what started off this discussion with, which is about the another police killing in New York. And I'd like to go along with what Neely Fuller was saying, is that we can expect for this to go on ad infinitum. I mean, I'm amazed how often we're amazed at the fact that stuff like this still occurs, whether it's a police killing, police shooting, or even some notable white celebrity or someone of that ilk, like a Donald Sterling, who says something racially inflammatory. And I've always said the same thing. I said we can expect for this to go on because, as Neely Fuller is fond of saying, if you don't understand what white supremacy is, how it operates, and all else, everything else you ever learn in life will only confuse you. And I think one of the things that's blocking us collectively from grasping this concept, and I mean, Neely Fuller's been on radio, one form or another, for more than a decade now, saying the same thing, because we've been so bombarded with this talk about civil rights, and we think that that's our legacy, and because things have changed on the surface from an overt standpoint over the past 50, 60 years, we keep asking ourselves, why is this stuff still happening? I mean, this is 2014. I can't believe this stuff is still happening. But if you don't, like Neely Fuller just said repeatedly, if you don't understand the concepts and what we're up against and what the system is, then you will always be confused, and we will continue asking the same questions. So I think it's not from Mr. Fuller's standpoint that he has to keep clarifying things. It's for us to kind of finally come to the conclusion that things have not changed, and that what this is a war that we're in, and that what we're really up against, going into, quote, rules of engagement. And until we do that, we're going to continue to be confused and asking the same question.
All righty. Dr. Fuller, we have a minute. Would you like to address that concern in this final 45 seconds?
Yes, that's the main thing. The gentleman that just called wrapped it up. That's the main thing. We have to understand we are in a total world system, and the name of that system is only one government, only one government on the planet. And the name of that government is not America, and not this and that and the other, not capitalism, not conservatism, not liberalism. The name of the government that runs the planet is the system of white supremacy. That's the official title. There is no other government, and that government is designed to mistreat, dominate and mistreat everybody who is considered to be, by the white supremacists, non-white. That's what it's designed to do. We have to understand that every day, all day.
You have been listening to The Compensatory Concept with Dr. Neely Fuller exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Heard live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So tune in next week for more with Dr. Fuller here on The Compensatory Concept on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, and radio the way it should be heard.
Exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.